A few yards or yalms, or whatever, away from the orc and the night elf, Ronin paused, staring in their general direction. Sort of paying attention, but also not. He understood perfectly why Brox had suddenly turned back to accompany Tyrande. Illidan's affection for her had indeed started to border on the creepy. In fact, it kinda seemed like the bloke had just attempted to use his own twin brother's absence to further his cause with the priestess. But Night Elven love triangles were the least of Ronin's concerns right now. He was far too preoccupied with the priestess's news in the tent, that Malfurion and Krasus had faced and defeated a demon commander, Hakar the Houndmaster. Ronin was, of course, happy to hear that his two friends had survived that encounter. Hakar and his pets had been a real pain in the caboose to the Wizards of Dalaran during the Legion's second coming. But that there was the problem. Hakar was defeated during the second Legion invasion. And yet here was news that he'd been slain during the first Legion invasion, meaning the future was now certain to be different. Meanwhile, soaring high above the landscape on a bunch of stupid chicken horses, Krasus' cheeks slapped and flapped in the wind, a sensation he sorely missed, with his ability to transform still lost. That sense of longing helping to return a pleasant memory to the Pale Mage, one of him and Alexstrasza on their first date. In that memory, Krasus, or Realisation in his true form, was circling the larger female over and over, showing off his strength and agility. And she, in turn, flew a vast circle around the realm of dragons, at a constant and deliberate pace. Not too slow, not too fast. Her new mate expected to prove that he had the energy and stamina to keep up. And keep up he did, performing all manner of stunts to impress her. The backstroke, getting stuck in trees, slamming into a rock and disconnecting. All of the things that only the coolest and truest masters of flight are capable of. My Alexstrasza. The memory faded, tears forming in Krasus' eyes that were totally just moisture in the sky or something. He wasn't crying, I'm crying. I mean, you're crying. A quick glance below, then allowed the Pale Mage to note that the landscape had begun to become more rocky and hilly, meaning they were almost halfway there. However, Krasus really wished that they were almost always there. Something was amiss, and he had a fairly good idea what the problem was. Neltharion, the Earth Warder. Even with his lost memories, there was no way Krasus could ever forget that in his future, that bastard was known as Deathwing. Evil itself, ever working to bring the world to ruin, so that he could rule over its wreckage. The last time they were in the same room together, Neltharion had cast some subtle ongoing spell over Krasus, preventing him from speaking out and warning the others. So it was pretty clear that the bloke had already started his descent into madness.
Krasus, are you ill? In a manner in which I can never be cured.
Krasus instantly cringed at the carelessness in his response to the druid. Centuries spent learning to keep his emotions masked, and yet here he was oversharing. A return to this turbulent time had seemingly caused him to have little more self-control than Ronin, or even Brox. Malfurion, however, just kinda nodded and looked away, choosing not to pry any further, and also probably not really understanding what the hell Krasus was on about anyway. Malfurion probably also didn't understand the severity of Hakar's demise, Krasus thought. The fact that the future was now almost certainly changed. The implications of that were staggering. But anyway, on and on their journey went, the landscape below turning more mountainous, huge peaks jutting up to the heavens. In the distance, what looked like a couple of huge black birds were flying towards them. Probably nothing to worry about, don't know why I even mentioned them.
What?
The Pale Mage tensed with the Hippogriff's sound of alarm. Those black birds were getting closer, and they were much too big to be birds. Oh my goodness gracious!
To the southern edge of the mountains! Hurry!
The druid obeyed quickly, recognizing the threat himself around the same time that Krasus had. However, as the two hippogriffs veered away, the large black dragons did not adjust their course. They just kept going. Despite their keen eyesight, they had not even noticed the smaller creatures. But that could change at any moment, and it will. So, Krasus urged his mount along at a swift pace. Sure, that could have just been one massive coincidence, but knowing Neltharion's growing paranoia, it was much more likely that the Earth Warder had dispatched sentries. Unfortunately, as the hippogriffs descended towards the lower mountains and everything seemed like it was going to be fine, one of the dragons then glanced back, spotting them and banking immediately.
What do we do? Fly lower!
Thankfully, Malfurion recognized Krasus' knowledge and expertise in this particular circumstance, so he didn't ask any further questions. Questions like, we came here to find dragons, why are we now fleeing dragons? But as they started to cheese it, The larger of the two pursuing beasts roared and spewed molten lava out of its face, a breath spell inherent to the black dragonflight. But before the bugger could spit out another blast of spicy goo, the hippogriffs darted into the mountain chain. However, the black dragons continued their relentless pursuit, simply dipping to the side to avoid colliding with the hard peaks, and Krasus scowled. Balls. That didn't work. Probably should have known that, though. His kind played at such games of finesse from the moment they could fly. But, thinking of such games then gave Krasus another idea. He caught Malfurion's attention, making several frantic gestures, explaining what to do, and somehow the druid very quickly understood all of those hand signals and finger points. Though from his expression it did seem the Night Elf had some doubts that this was actually going to work. But it's not like they had any other choice, was it? So, here we go. As they dove towards a particular mountain peak, the druid abruptly steered his hippogriff to the right, whilst Krasus did the opposite, banking to the left. And sure enough, glancing back over his shoulder, the pale mage saw that the dragons split up, with the larger, older one now chasing after him.
Alexstrasza, guide me.
No longer able to see the druid or the other dragon, Krasus then rolled and banked through narrow gaps, his hippogriff mount flapping its wings like a maniac, trying to outpace the chomping, snapping and lava-spitting monster behind it. He flew through nooks, through crannies, tight squeezies, and yet, each time, the dragon managed to avoid crashing, despite the incredible speed in which they raced. Now, the book does a great job of really ramping up the tension and doing all of the aerial action stuff for several paragraphs, but I'd rather just crack on. So, after a bunch of twists and turns and flippies, Malfurion and his hippogriff re-emerged from the other side of a particular mountain, one that Krasus had previously pointed at during all of his hand signal stuff. And, with dragons still very much in tow, both the Pale Mage and Druid then guided their mounts towards each other, their monstrous pursuers deep in concentration, and therefore completely oblivious to the obvious thing that was about to happen. At the last possible moment, with hippogriffs screaming at the top of their bloody lungs, Krasus and Malfurion then dodged out of each other's way. But the black dragons close behind them were not so lucky, slamming into each other at full speed with a thundering boom before crashing down to the rocky depths below. Meanwhile, Illidan should have been going over strategy and stuff with the Moonguard, but right at this moment he couldn't have given less of a shit about any of that. All he could think about was how much of an absolute bungler he'd just been. He'd bared his soul to Tyrande, only to discover she'd already chosen his brother. And the worst part, Malfurion was probably far too busy with his stupid druid stuff to have even bloody noticed.
Oi! All are to stay within the bounds of the camp, Master Illidan. Under orders of...
I know whose orders it is!
Oh, alright. Jeez.
The young sorcerer continued his stroppy grumpy stomps, entering a slightly wooded area that was completely untouched by the Legion. Many of his kind would normally have taken heart by this fact, but, again, Illidan couldn't care less. Wouldn't have bothered him if this entire area was scorched to the ground, in fact. Hell, a part of him wanted to raise his own hand and do the deed himself. Illidan's rage was such that he dreamed of fighting absolutely anything at this moment, if it would drain him of this jealousy he now felt. How had it even come to this? Everything had fallen into place perfectly. His position was one to admire. Lots of other ladies had expressed their desire for him. He was a catch. Powerful. Handsome. So why the bloody hell was Tyrande not smitten? Illidan then gestured towards a rock, transforming it into a recreation of his brother's face, and clenching his fist and snarling, he then punted the damn thing as hard as he could.
Bunglers! She should have been mine!
Illidan then corrected himself.
She would have been mine, if not for you.
He is always taking precedence, when clearly it should be you.
The thought, in someone else's voice, had popped into Illidan's mind very suddenly. It kind of felt like it had come out of nowhere or something.
Me? Because I have these eyes. My miraculous golden eyes.
A sign of greatness, an omen of legend.
A jest, played by the gods.
Malfurion does not even know she wants him. What if he were to never know?
What am I supposed to do? Keep them apart? Might as well try to keep the moon from rising.
If Malfurion were to perish in the war before he could know the truth, it would be as if her choice had never happened. She would surely come to you if there was no more Malfurion.
That caused the young sorcerer to pause, cupping his hands together, creating an image of Tyrande dancing within his palms. A fond memory from a past festival. It was the first time Illidan had ever viewed Tyrande as more than just a friend.
if there was no more Malfurion.
However, Illidan then clapped his hands shut.
No, that would be barbaric.
And yet,
Many things can happen to one in the midst of battle, not necessarily death. The demons know of your brother. He destroyed the first portal, slew the Queen's advisor and a Legion commander. They would want him alive.
Turn him over. To them.
Battles become confused. Some are left behind. No one is ever to blame.
No one is ever to blame.
Illidan mumbled, summoning Tyranda's dancing image once again atop his palms.
No, not my brother. Never.
The sorcerer then stomped off, muttering and rambling to himself. He was far too distracted to notice a figure hiding amongst the trees. A horned and hooved shadowy figure with glowing crimson eyes.
The groundwork is laid, and you yourself will build upon it, twin of the druid.
The following day, no longer willing to wait for the druid and mage to return, Lord Ravencrest ordered the Night Elven host to move out. It was clear that many of his followers felt it would be much better to march at night, but they could not afford to be too predictable. Sure, bloodshed lurked just beyond the horizon, but the Night Elves marched nonetheless, because they're well cool. Meanwhile, again,
Goes on for as far as I can detect.
the it that Krasus was referring to was a vast, unseen shield that they had come upon off-screen, and it was currently preventing the druid and pale mage from advancing and reaching their goal.
I am defeated. Is there no way to pierce it? I cannot even contact anyone within. Even my thoughts are barred.
Malfurion had come to greatly respect Krasus after all of the assistance the pale mage had provided, saving him from Xavius, saving him from being lost within the Emerald Dream, saving him from some of the demons in the last video. So, to see him this disheartened now was actually a little bit sad.
We were so close. This is his work, to be sure. Whose work?
Krasus's eyes then narrowed as he regarded the young druid, his expression growing ever so slightly unsettling. Guy appeared to be measuring Malfurion's worth for something, and Malfurion suddenly found himself genuinely hoping to be found worthy.
Yes, you deserve to know.
The druid held his breath in anticipation. This was it. He's finally going to learn the secret that's not a secret because everyone already knows.
Look into my eyes, Malfurion. There are 3 of us that you and yours term outsiders. Ronin, who calls himself a human, and Brox, an orc. You know not their races, but they are as you see them. Human and an orc. Okay? Have I ever said what it is I am? Have either of the others specified?
Thinking back for a moment, the Night Elf could not recall a single instance of anyone giving name to Krasus' race.
You are of Night Elven blood. You look enough like us to be kin. If I look like one of your kind, had they been dead for a year. That is as close to a resemblance as we can admit, yes? But what you see is only a guise, a visage. There are no blood ties between your race and mine. Nor, for that matter, any with mine or orcs, humans, dwarves or Tauren. Then, what are you? Look deep, druid. Look deep into my eyes, and think of what you know of me already.
As Malfurion stared into his companion's eyes, he recalled all he knew, which was actually not that much at all, to be fair. A spellcaster of remarkable knowledge. Even at his most sickly and ill, Krasus had carried about himself an aura of incredible age and ability. The Sisterhood sensed it, as did the Moonguard. Even the Night Sabers revered him more than they should. For a time, the mage had even commanded the friendship and respect of a dragon. Thinking of said dragon, Alexstrasza had also shown signs of weariness, hadn't he? Right up until he and Krasus had gotten close to one another. And once together, their sickness had subsided, their strength magnified, and the way they'd spoken to each other was also significant. It was like they were equals, brothers.
I can see by the look on your face that you are very nearly there, Malfurion. Keep going.
Malfurion did keep going. He deduced. He deduced hard. Though I think Krasus may have still helped him a little bit, because an image then formed in his mind of Krasus' robes ripping, his face stretching, wings unfurling, crimson scales across his entire gargantuan...
Oh my goodness gracious! You're a dragon, aren't you? Finally. Yes, Malfurion Stormrage. I am. A red dragon, to be precise. Long have I worn the form of one mortal creature or another, however, for it has been my choice to walk among you, teaching and learning, as I strive for peace among us all.
Shaking his head, all Malfurion could manage was to repeat the words,
A dragon. Of all those in the host, only Ronin fully knows who or what I am, though the orc might understand, and the Sisterhood possibly have their suspicions as well. Are humans allied with dragons? Not exactly. Ronin was my student, an exceptional mage even amongst his versatile race. In some ways, I trust him more than I do many of my own people.
Krasus then slapped one hand against the invisible barrier blocking their path.
And this only adds credence to why that is. It should not be here. A dragon. Yes, Malfurion. A dragon. Why didn't you just transform in order to fly here? Why did we faff around in the woods for hippogriffs? Why have you almost been slain multiple times? Some things must remain hidden, my friend. But I tell you this much. I do not transform because I cannot. That ability has been stripped from me for the time being. A dragon.
Krasus turned his gaze back towards the concealed wall once again.
Now you perceive why I felt so certain I'd be able to confront the dragons. They would listen to one of their own, and also tell one of their own why they're acting so damned weirdly. Who would do this?
Krasus attempted to answer, but his mouth instantly clamped shut.
It doesn't matter. I failed. The one hope of ensuring the outcome of the war is beyond my reach.
Malfurion let out a big old gulp again.
I may know of a way through. For me, at least. What do you mean? I could walk the Emerald Dream,